So we're going to make it black and white. Now we are in Photoshop, got a smart object, and we've got our adjustment layers over here. And I know I want this wall to have a really, first thing you can do actually is just to check it out is throw a black and white adjustment layer on there. And you can move the sliders around, and sometimes that will get you pretty close to where you want to go, right? But not always. And this is called a global adjustment because there is nothing masked off. It's affecting the entire image. Now, what I want to do, I'm going to delete that. I want to work in pieces, in separate pieces, because with black and white, luminosity is the most important thing. So I'm going to make a series of kind of quick selections. All right, and now you know how to make them a little more refined using the quick mask. I'm going to hit quick mask just for a second. Get the brush in here. Just get this. One thing you can also use, which I don't think we have spent too much time on yet, is whenever you have a selection, you can go to Select, Select and Mask. So let me throw this at you. And this takes you into another window. And what you can do by hitting F is cycle through your views. So you can view your selection in a bunch of different ways. And I like to view it this way. And I can go zoom in a little bit and check my edges, which are not perfect in this case, but I want to introduce the tool to you. You can play with the radius of it, and you can see it will get a little sharper. Zoom in a little bit. I like to use Smart Radius. If you go too far, however, see how it starts to suck in the selection? So maybe I'll just clean that up a little bit. You also have Smooth, if you want to smooth out the entire selection. Feather, not the greatest idea for this. Maybe you can feather out one or two. And Shift Edge is one I use a lot. If I want to bring the edge one way, I can. Or I can bring the edge the other way, right? So sometimes that'll help you from if you're getting a little bit of a halo effect. And here I'm not going to do too much because I'm just going to use my layer mask and a brush on that. And then over here you have several different tools which will allow you to brush in and refine the selection, but also make selections in this window. So this is something that is super helpful, and we will go over this later, but I wanted you to know that it's here. And then once it's done, you can just output to a selection. All right, so I've made that selection a little bit more awesome, and then I would get black and white. Now, I know I want this to be kind of intense. I don't know how intense though, so I'm going to get the scrubby hand. The scrubby hand will allow me to move the values in that image back and forth. In this case, it's pretty much just the reds. Now, I want to do the red rock. So I'm going to grab a quick select to see how that works. This is going to be these are some experimental selections. When you make yours, you will use the quick mask a lot. Hold down the shift to add a little bit there. Now I'm going to go back to black and white and make another black and white. And it has just that little white piece showing, and that means that is what I can affect. Because look at it in black and white. Look at how these luminosity values have no contrast, right? It's super flat. But now, because they're separate, I can work with them and I can change the direction of the lighting and just make these a little deeper. If you don't know exactly how to do it or what slider to use, grab the targeted adjustment brush and you can do that. Looks pretty good. I'm going to make another selection, maybe just the water this time. Hold down the option to get rid of this and a little bit of that and a whole lot of this. Cool. And also when you have a selection tool and you're working with it, the select and mask window can pop up just like that. So you'll see it in there. And I like to see it on overlay or sometimes on black or an alpha channel. So I can see where I need to adjust that. I'm going to hit cancel. And now I'm going to hit another black and white. And I know I want this to be a really beautiful, deep value, right? So it knows to adjust certain sliders that I may not know. So your whole image, you'll start to put together your image, okay? This is one way of doing black and white, and there are several different ways. If we turn off all of these local adjustment layers, again, we could do a black and white global, and it doesn't look bad, but you're going to need to burn and dodge to make sure that you have contrast and you have separation between the colors, because we're not dealing with colors, we're dealing with luminosity. Okay, so I could always do that, make a new layer, get a brush, hit X to change that and burn this in. Change this to soft light. Oops. And that's a good place to start there too. And if you want to clean that layer mask up, again, I like to get this pixel thumbnail up. I like to add a layer mask to it, zoom in, get a bit of a smaller brush, and go along and clean that up. So you can work from a selection, or if you're like, man, I really just like this brush a lot, you can sit in here and brush all day long. If you have a Wacom, this is a very intuitive way of working. All right, there's another way of making something black and white. I'm going to turn all these layers off, and this is the other adjustment that I really like, and it is the gradient map. Now the gradient map will give you whatever gradient is selected. Hopefully it's this and not something like this. If it is something like this, just go to the black and white and you're good to go. Why I like this is that you can play with these stops, which are the color stops, to apply different values. Also, you can add stops. So if I add a stop here and I add like a gray, you can see that I'm changing the way that image looks, right? And at the top, you can add what are called opacity stops. And if you do it and you hate it, you just drag it off. But the gradient map gives you this editor, which is a really kind of a fun way of working. Maybe here you want a darker gray. And you can see when you hit OK, you've got a pretty beautiful range of values. And you can always double click to bring this back up. And in the properties, double click on the gradient. See this little guy here? To bring it up, and you can move it around. Make sure you're getting exactly what you want. Something like that starts to look good. So that's the other one I like to do. And sometimes I'll use them in combination. Okay? So the gradient map, but absolutely probably the best tool is the black and white adjustment layer.